Welcome back to the Anti-Fragile Fitness Podcast. We're your hosts, Arthur Mena and Colin Zastro. Last week, we kind of did my background as an athlete and coach. This week, we are turning the tables to Mr. Colin Zastro. You ready, man?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Awesome. Same energy every time. Colin's got one speed,
Call me
and it's
golden
just
retriever
like
for a reason.
perpetually ascending, perpetually ascending.
Perpetually and
Uh,
bang energy.
Everyone knows the Bang era. It's the prime Bang era is better than any white monster, and I'm going to get crucified for that, but I stand by that statement. It's just like 100 milligrams of caffeine difference between Bang and Monster Start. So, um, okay, for the listeners, for the viewers, 4.5 years ago, I got a message from a young teenager named Colin Zastro saying I need to be on his podcast. And I was half asleep, and I was just waking up, getting ready for an overnight security shift. And it was a force of nature. And there was this jacked teenager, more jacked than I had ever seen in high school. So take me through Colin Zastro's training journey from day one, man.
Day one. All right. So it probably started in middle school. You saw those Marvel movies with the jacked actors. And it's like, wow, I want to be like that. And you do some curls, you do some push-ups infrequently. It doesn't really amount to much because you don't understand proper training at all. And that was I had weights, never really was able to do much. I always like had this like vision of wanting to be jacked, but never stuck with it, never amounted to much. In eighth grade, I was in the locker room. And I can't say that like it was a crazy case of bullying because I know people who've gone far worse than myself. But I definitely was picked on quite a bit when I was younger. And I was changing in the locker room. A guy came in, shoved me into a wall, and then his buddy came in and then shoved me into a wall too. And something snapped a little bit. And tried to fight. Didn't get my ass kicked, but I essentially just got manhandled and sat on like a table. And in that moment, I was like, man, maybe being weak is something I don't ever want to continue and do. And started going into the weights a little bit. Still had no clue about proper training. But the year after that, my freshman year of high school, I got injured in the cross country team. I was running up a hill and there was a stick pointing straight out of the ground. Tripped, landed on it, hit me in the quad, messed up some of my connective tissue. And my season was over because I couldn't really walk that well after that. And so they had me in the weight room doing cross training. They wanted me to do just cardio in the weight room, but I saw the weights and I'm like, wow, this is kind of what I wanted to do. And it started off with a really humbling experience, actually. I loaded up a barbell of 225 and I dropped it from my arms extended, hit me in the sternum, quickly eroded my ego faster than anything has ever happened before. And but at the same time, it kind of opened my mind up to I can't do this now. I'm not nearly as strong as I thought I was, but maybe one day I will be able to. And then from there on, I hit arms every day for 3 months straight. Just arms. Just do biceps, maybe some triceps, but I essentially only did arms. And I had developed a pretty terrible shoulder injury. I couldn't actually raise my arm up above my like shoulder line at all without debilitating pain. And that led me to go to a doctor, and they're like, you'll actually have more progress if you train like this and do a split. Work on one thing one day, another thing one day. And in my mind, I'm like, that's bullshit. If I want to be jacked, I should be doing this every single day as hard as it can possibly go on the one muscle group I want to develop. Um, that was kind of my first like glimpse into exercise science, the very basic end of exercise science. But over that, I made a few adjustments, started training different muscle groups. Pain went away. I think I actually ended up suffering an AC joint separation from that initial experience because the shoulder just isn't the same anymore. Doesn't limit me at all, but just the range of motion's limited. Some pain in weird positions. Who knows? Um, Dove into it pretty deep. Started making some progress. Pretty slow. I ended up joining swim season my second year in high school, and at that point, seeing progress and losing a lot of the progress because we were swimming 3 hours a day. I wasn't lifting. I also thought it was a great idea to go into a massive calorie deficit, so I went from 170 to 138. Had a six pack, but I was also incredibly tall, small, did not have a physique or frame at all. And that combined with an extreme vitamin D deficiency, I kind of spiraled. I would leave class 3 times a period to check and make sure I still had abs in the mirror. So just the most wild end of body dysmorphia. I couldn't sleep because I just needed to work out. Um, and I was doing crazy swim season. Then I started bringing the weights back into it as well too. So on my time that I wasn't swimming, I was hitting the weights as hard as I possibly could, constantly fried. Vitamin D deficiency that was so bad that I literally felt like death was imminent. Like that's how much vitamin D matters. I had my levels tested and they were so the doctors have their minimum level, which is actually significantly lower than it should be. I think it comes out to 22 nanograms or milligrams per deciliter. Mine came at like 11 or 7. So wildly low. Like I'm talking about, I every single day I was existing feeling like there's no tomorrow. I'm probably gonna die. Got that fixed eventually, and my life kind of turned around. The body dysmorphia sort of improved. But that was one of my big glimpses into like the physiological like difference that having proper blood levels, proper nutrition, the variables that come into our lives that we don't really think about too much. That's how much it actually does matter. Um, Junior year, hitting the weights even harder, getting after it. I sort of towards the end of my sophomore year joined the powerlifting team, and I noticed that my deadlift form wasn't the best, but the first time I ever deadlifted, I think I did 380. It was either 85 or 65. I have to look at the old videos. It was three plates and a 25, so 365. For three, trying to do the math. 50, 365. I did 365 for reps. First time I ever deadlifted at 138 pounds, and I was like, you know what? Maybe this is a lift that I might be good at. And that combined with, stumbling across David Lade on YouTube, you see this jacked teenager living the dreams, living with his friends, hitting massive numbers, brand deals. I dove pretty deep into the powerlifting. Deadlift was what definitely improved the most. My squat followed it, and then my poverty bench shortly after that. Junior year, pretty much same thing, just going really hard. I didn't do sports my junior year. I should attack the weight super hard. Had a girlfriend, and that was actually just more motivation. Girlfriend, not wife. That was just more motivation to hit the weights as hard as I possibly could. 7 days a week, no days off, 3 hours in the gym a day. Incredibly overtrained, but because I was actually eating correctly this time, I probably got up to 180. And then my senior year, before COVID happened, I got up to 220, 220, 221. I pulled over 500 pounds, then I got to 550, and then I pulled to 585. And during this time, the pandemic actually happened, shutting the gyms down. So I was confined at home. I had parents who didn't really, they took the warnings a little bit to heart, and so didn't see my girlfriend, didn't see friends, didn't leave the house for weeks at a time. I would either be playing video games or I'd be hitting weights. And during this time, I was like, you know what? Maybe I start a podcast because I just felt like I needed to work on something.
Mhm.
Um, so that's when the podcast began. I had started a clothing brand that I'm actually doing some other business work too. A little bit before the pandemic, global pandemic happened. So I started going a little bit harder into business endeavors, learning more video editing, still hitting the gym. I would do bodyweight workouts, and then eventually the gym that I train at in Janesville lent me some weights for home. And so this kind of reversed the bulk that I'd gotten myself into because I was bulking so hard. I was eating probably close to 5,000 calories a day, which is more doable for me now because I'm actually burning it. And, I feel like my body's adapted better to higher amounts of foods, and using it for the correct energy avenues instead of just storing it all as fat. But my bulk was taken so far, I would end the day with 6 cups of brown rice, half a dozen eggs altogether. I would put on top of that, I'd put peanut butter and then olive oil. And then I'd proceed to take shots of olive oil after that meal. And by the end of it, I was practically tearing up because I just hated food so much. But this is awful. I don't want to do this anymore. So the pandemic kind of naturally ended up reversing that. Did a nice recomp. Started training body weight very hard, then hitting the weights. And then when the gyms opened back up, I got a job at the gym, which allowed me to go straight back into deadlifting and squatting. Funny enough, my deadlift and squat probably only dropped 50, 60 pounds during like the 3 months of not hitting a single deadlift or squat. I tried training legs initially, but just through pushing, I think intensity being young, having high testosterone, um, I didn't actually see much muscle loss. In fact, I actually probably gained some muscle in my upper body. If you're not training the specificity for the squat, for the deadlift, you're going to lose some mass. But I was pleasantly surprised when I got back. And during this time going to college, I would there was this pill called Vanquish Hardcore, this fat burner pill. I would sleep till noon. I would do my college courses. I would then hit the gym, and then I would drive to my girlfriend's campus, stay at the campus until 1 or 2 in the morning, go back home, either lift again and or do coursework till 4 in the morning, surviving off of these DMHA pills, probably 5 to 6 bangs a day at least. At this time, my max I ever got to was I think 8 or 9. Um, just to cripple, just to
Whoa,
cope with the extreme levels of over
eight,
pushing it.
eight
Yeah.
or nine bangs?
Yep, yep. And I remember I was just I felt I could feel that I there was no more energy at that point. It was just this constant, like, it almost crashed my energy levels below baseline, but I needed the bang energy to stay awake and perform the workouts. This vicious cycle of like needing the caffeine to hit the gym, hit, go to work, do all the schoolwork, needing the job to pay for the bang energy, and needing the bang energy to go to the job. It was just this constant vicious cycle. Combine that with DMHA pills that I was taking. I would literally, before I would set an alarm 30 minutes before I need to be up. I would pop these DMHA pills, so precursors to Adderall, and then I would jump out of bed the second they got absorbed into my bloodstream and I could feel the physiological effects of the pre-workout. Go just sprint through the day, deadlift probably on the low end 3 to 4 times a week, on the upper end 7 times a week. And then I rode this out for a while. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. But the thing was, I was getting better too. I felt awful, but like I was having so much fun in the gym that I kind of just ignored like the lack of energy, all the pain and whatnot, because I was hitting massive PRs. So it was this like mix of like feeling awful in the moment, but still managing to push through it and having these wins constantly. Uh, and then this crazy like workload on top of that as well. But that's when I started getting really like extra good at the deadlifts. Ended up hitting 635 at 180 pounds. Did a powerlifting meets. Realized that I'm pretty strong. And then that was probably about 8 months after we had met. So I hopped on improved programming that I did not follow correctly. You had me doing 2 a days, and it would have worked well if I hadn't had thrown in 10 different accessory movements because I didn't want to have small biceps. It could have been great, but I was like, I can't lose my biceps. So I'm doing curls, I'm doing side raises, I'm doing extra tricep pushdowns, extra bench press movements, extra chest flies on top of it. When it was supposed to be, following CNS workouts to a T, um, going probably harder than I should have in terms of like the 2x5. I'd follow the prescribed like 2x5, or I think it was a little bit different at the time. Um, but then I would just redline myself in some other way. And so
Yeah,
that
for
was,
clarification, like so Colin, saw that I had properly started AFF because I had done programs for people when it was like still blood in train throughout 2021, and then I had moved to Chicago like in February 2022, and I was closer to Colin, and he was like, "Yeah, well, let's try some programming for 2 weeks," and actually did it for 2 weeks, and we recorded about it, and you're like. I've never seen more like strength and flexibility and power and hypertrophy. And then he jumped on, programming properly and he just had that itch. Um, and yeah, that itch was, I mean, for example, I'd see in the group chat, send a message like, Coach, I did it. It's like 500-pound squat for two. And I was just like, what the hell are you doing? I was like, we told you to break protocol. And then the next check-in I had with him, he was like, yeah, yeah, my legs aren't really working. Like, all my leg movements are down, body shut down. I'm like, yeah, because I'm getting every last little possible thing I can out of these programs before it reaches the point of diminishing returns. And yeah, I mean, after hearing Colin's background before this, you can understand why that that itch was hard to ignore, basically.
yeah, yeah. And it's hard looking back at it, and I understood where I was at in terms of I was hitting these massive numbers. I was improving consistently, but it got to the point where the diminishing return kicked in, and then also the while the return diminished in terms of progress I was making, the fatigue levels, the extreme exertion, and the physiological drain also hit a point too, to where after deadlifting, I don't know if I think this was during a period where I wasn't necessarily on blood and train programming at the time, but I
Mhm.
essentially deadlifted every day for 2 weeks straight. Hit some massive PRs. But it ended those 2 weeks with being so drained and so overtrained. People don't understand. There's functional overreaching and non-functional overreaching. Functional overreaching is pushing yourself a little bit harder, gaining muscle, performance decreases, you deload, go back to it. Normal kind of general programming where there's like 4 week, 6 week blocks, harder, harder,
Yeah.
harder, drops, whatnot. And there's non-functional overreaching, which has to do with your central nervous system going so far that for months, we at least weeks, but possibly months afterwards, you still feel awful and you're still overtrained, no matter how much rest you get, how much sleep you get. And I got there. I was exhausted tying my shoes. That's how hard it was. And that combined with the crippling energy drink addiction too, I would need the 7 banks to go to the gym. I would literally like go to the store. There's like a 3 for $6, 3 for $7 deal. Hit the gas station on the way there, chug 3 bangs in 10 minutes on my way to the gym, hit my workout, somehow managed to go through it, throw open the Denny's parking lot at the end of it, which happened twice. I'd be driving home and at least 2 times. One time I couldn't even pull to the side of the road. I threw up in my passenger seat. It just hit me sick on the interstate highway, threw up in the passenger seat. One time I fell out of my car. I was so sick. I literally landed in the grass in Denny's, threw up in the parking lot. Um, and that was when I kind of realized something had to change a little bit and made some adjustments. What also probably didn't help too was that I started shortly after this, I started training martial arts. Um, and being a person who had muscle, had power, I and could see benefits in redlining myself and just using muscle, throwing people off a mount, bench pressing them, just 100% heart rate the entire time during rolls. I managed to somehow stumble through the first few months of jiu-jitsu training like that too. Got choked up by a 110-pound chick on my first day training. She was like 55. Humbled me, but it also kind of showed me that needed to invest in some time because I listened to enough Jocko. I knew that I would suck at jiu-jitsu. And I was actually hoping for it because lifting, it hadn't gotten easy, but I mean, I could just redline myself all day long, push through it. It was fine. And so I started martial arts. I had a coach, Tom Gavrlos, who has been a lifetime supporter of the brand. I've given me some great MMA stuff. Definitely pushes people very hard. He talked me into starting striking, and then eventually we started training for a fight. The timelines become muddled because when your brain's running off of 1,200 milligrams of caffeine, time tends to get a little bit weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So I had started training fighting. 3, 4 months of jiu-jitsu, started training fighting. A few months after that, I committed to a fight. Um, I was working for Culver's. I was a hiring manager for Culver's. So I would go in, open up new locations. I had a location that was probably about 45 minutes away from me, and my normal shifts were probably 10 in the morning to anywhere from 10 at night to 2 in the morning. And so on the days that I could make it in for MMA, I would, or any of the classes, I would do 4 hours of fighting. I would do my lifts and then I'd do an extra conditioning session. I eventually got more time off at my job to go to more classes. And my rule was if I had the time to make it, I would attend every single class I could. That combined with pushing myself way too hard in the gym, deviating from protocol, I somehow managed to make a lot of progress, get incredibly shredded, but I was so incredibly stiff that I had my shoulder torn during a rolling session by someone who hated me. Just ripped an Americana, which is a submission where your arm gets pulled like this. Ripped an Americana, tore the shoulder. 4 weeks to rehab it for the fight. I didn't reach out to you, coach. I kind of just stuck with it myself. Figured out that it was actually a fascial tissue in my traps and back that caused my shoulder to be placed with too much strain, and this everything
Hmm.
was tight and brittle. So that was kind of my first glimpse into rehabbing something on my own. There's a few other moments, but I managed to rehab myself in 4 weeks. I couldn't even open doors during that period with that arm, and I had a fight in 4 weeks. Still redlining myself, still pushing myself, still going to all the classes. Fought the fight. For 3 3-minute rounds. destroyed the whole time. I essentially just out-athleted the person, took him down every single round once or twice, and then just threw hammer fists the whole time. Like I'm surprised this guy didn't give up because I was just it was just this Mario Kart hammer the whole time, just me hitting him. Hit him so many times I actually hurt my hand, injured that. Uh, and then shortly after that, back to training the day after. So the weekend, had the weekend. Monday afterwards, I was back to training. Eventually entered into a second fight prep a few months down the line. Fought at 205, weighing 189 pounds, with a guy who missed weight the first time. He wasn't a good fighter, but he had a lot of experience. I think he had something like 18 wins, 11 losses, and then one or two no contests. Fought up a few weight classes, beat him in the first round to an Americana. He threw me around. I managed to knock him down at one point. He turned that into a takedown on me because I just closed distance too hard. We scrambled. I ended up against the fence. He threw a knee. I remember thinking, threw a knee, threw like an overhand at me. I was in my mind, I'm like, oh, that didn't actually hurt that bad. Like this really actually isn't that bad. It obviously like stunned me a bit, but I'm like, this isn't a bad kind of pain. And then he eventually pulled me off the cage. We scrambled. I landed on top. I saw the arm, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go for the Americana. Went for the Americana, tore his shoulder. Not a good thing. The second I heard the rip and saw his eyes, jumped up immediately before the ref even called it off because I have no motivation. At that point, I was a lot less angry as a person and didn't want to see him hurt. First fight, I was just seeing red the whole time. I would be in my car shadow boxing, just imagining beating the crap out of the guy I fought. The incredibly unhealthy side of the sport where you just take an ego too far, just want to dominate someone. Not healthy, not aligning with my views as an Orthodox Christian at all. Second fight, much more calm, much higher nerves because I was so calm. Managed to win that. I know
Only
we're going
only
through.
Colin could get high nerves from being calm. I swear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was just because I think used my anger too much. I saw red too hard for too long. I just kind of didn't really know how to exist in this like calm state. Um, and knowing and hearing the past conversation, you probably can understand why it's hard for me to be calm and relaxed because I just have one mode, which I've realized and started working on, especially as of recently. Anyways, second fight, got a belt. That was pretty cool. Third fight, I was training a lot smarter in terms of proper strength and conditioning, not going for necessarily extreme strength, still lifting heavy, but in the correct terms. And that was actually a Muay Thai match.
Yeah. Yeah, you were back on protocol at that point. Your protocol ahead of the second fight. I remember the takedown speed and the hand speed workouts we did. And
Yeah,
then you're in protocol for not USMTO, TBAs for Muay Thai. Yeah.
TBAs. And that was sort of the first fight camp that I actually like hit hard conditioning. I did it correctly. The weight cut wasn't awful. I didn't need a weight cut for the second one because I fought up so much. That was like the first one where it was like probably came in the best shape of my life, just with not enough Muay Thai experience. And
Yeah.
because the first two fights were so easy in the fact that I took very little damage, first fight, there was never really a question of like, I'm going to lose this. Do I have to keep on pushing? The second fight, there was a little bit feeling like out of my element, but I managed to win that too. But I ended it in the first round. Third fight was one where I took so much damage that that was one where afterwards you kind of question, whether this is the healthiest thing for you. Um, I at one point I took an illegal knee to the head, unintentional, no bad blood at all. The guy did not intend it. So and he was already beating me, so I can't. He would have won either way. Took an illegal knee to the head, knocked me out, messed my nose up terribly. I woke back up, finished the fight, probably took 300 more shots to the head, and it was just this pure sprint of I'm just going to throw overhands as hard as I possibly can and possibly get a knockout, while getting hit over and over and over and kneed over and over and over. Blood was covering the ground. The doctors tried to call it off after I got knocked out, woke back up, had a break because it was an illegal knee. They're trying to have me cancel the fight. They're like, hey, do you want to do this? I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. How many fingers am I holding up? Three. Took me like 10 seconds. Are you sure you want to do this? I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. He's like, we can have this be done right now if you want. And I'm like, yeah, I think I want to continue. I want to continue. Finish the fight. There's blood, a mass amount of blood all over the Muay Thai ring.
Yeah.
Um, and the fight, it was a loss. Wasn't technical enough, wasn't good enough at Muay Thai, but that in that moment, I had just that's what I got the fight that I wanted, in the fact that there were so many moments where I should have given up, or a normal person would have given up, and I continued and didn't choose to take the easy way out. Um, Probably no one would have blamed me if I did choose to call out quits. I would have known though that I had more left in the tank. And that was where that was the first time in my fighting journey so far that I was actually proud of myself and what I had did. The first two fights, you win the next day. You're like, I don't feel like that was enough. Even though I lost the third one, it was fine. There was so much damage done to my nose that they cauterized it 5 times, and it would not stop the bleeding. Brendan took me to the hospital. Who's I think he's not a paramedic yet, EMT at the time. Took me to the hospital because he's like, this isn't normal. You shouldn't have a nosebleed that lasts for 9 hours straight. Blood starts backing out of my eye. We're at the hospital for like 8 hours. The doctors eventually tell me that there's nothing they can do. It slows down enough for me to go home. I end up with a concussion so bad that I probably lost like 2 days of time. I just remember, and this is terrible. I remember drinking because I was so stuffed up and couldn't sleep. There's so much fluids. My face was so mangled. I remember drinking alcohol to fall asleep, eventually driving home from the TBAs, being so concussed that I couldn't focus on talking and driving at the same time. And then going back to training way too early. That Monday after the fight, the nosebleed starts back up again, continues for a while, and that's when I started pulling back a little bit and gave myself some time to rest because that's not healthy. Uh, that was probably about a year and a few months ago.
Yeah.
And in the course of the meantime, just been working on conditioning, still getting stronger. Pulled 675 after no deadlift specific training at all, building the business. I know I threw a lot in there, but there was a lot, lot to talk about in that 30 minutes. But yeah, that's about where we are right now. What did change? I train correctly now, and I have for a while now. I understand how to adjust programming the CNS numbers. The CNS, training CNS was why my deadlift was able to get so strong not hitting deadlift, because you work other movements that build the strength that you're not constantly training to failure, and so you just hold on to this level of strength in movements that work so well and carry over so well to other exercises that I was just able to go for it because my back and posterior chain had gotten so conditioned from all the work before. Bench press went from floor press only for 2 years because of the shoulder tear. When I went back to close grip bench press, I actually broke my all-time PR from when I was benching consistently, just from the effectiveness of the CNS work, conditioning through the roof, much more relaxed in terms of posture and having looser shoulders, which has always been an issue for me, just being stiff and not having mobility, good mobility as a kid. It's this constant battle of we have to attack it every single day because the gains that were so hard to get initially, they're not going to stick if we don't keep on training like this because I just fall into that naturally very stiff pattern with a lot of muscle. There also comes, there's a little bit of a trade-off in some cases if you don't work on it in terms of flexibility. You can have both, it becomes harder. I just didn't have both for so long that getting both was hard, and to maintain it is a lot harder. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is Colin's Astro in a nutshell.
Yes,
One
sir.
speed, all systems go from beginning to end. And yeah, I mean, just a couple things there. I thought I had a bad bang era. I was doing 3 to 4. I never did 7 bangs in a day. That's 2.1 grams of caffeine in a day. Can't even conceive. There was one time where I did actually no, I did five. I did 5 bangs. I had some Vietnamese coffee. It was for a St. Patrick's Day bar shift in 2018. And I was also eating this caffeinated peanut butter they used to have. It was called Angry Mills. It was really good. It was like dark chocolate, hazelnut, caffeine, protein, peanut butter. So good too. It was like $10, the small thing. I was like, cool, I'm getting this for my shift. And yeah, I've never done that many bangs. Because I remember that shift too. I had worked until like 4 a.m. the night before, and then I had sparring at 8, and then I worked from like 10 to 5. They told me to sleep on my 2 hour break. Instead, I ran 5 miles and did 300 burpees. And then I went back to work from 7 to 4, and I was like, I remember almost like thinking I was feeling heart palpitations to the amount of caffeine I was consuming. So I was like, I should probably stop. Never done 7. That is wild.
Yeah.
Um,
I forgot to include this too, but the overtraining got pushed to a point so hard. So there was also some questionable substances involved in this time period too that I would not say contributed to my strength because I had the strength to begin with, but certainly allowed me to push myself harder in the moment.
yeah,
Never took steroids, and I'm not going to list what I actually did take in the moment just because I don't think it's right to encourage. Some kid might be listening to this and go, "Oh, I could get strong and fight too." It's not the point. Got strong beforehand, wanted to go even harder, so I was taking something else to push that up to the next level. Um, I A few weeks into it, I got so sick. I had a sinus infection that was so bad that I went blind. I had the flu so bad that it actually and so much inflammation in my body, it actually caused sciatica to where I couldn't sleep. And so I was blind, could not have the energy to get out of my bed and cook. And it didn't carry on for 3 days. Didn't It wasn't a week. 2 weeks straight, I felt like I was gonna die constantly. Could not work. I tried to find my garage. I was like, I'm gonna go to work. I can't let these people down. There's a shift counting on me. I went to go find my garage and I couldn't see, I couldn't find my garage. I was that blind from just all the pressure on my sinuses. And that was the last time I ever decided to take something like that and to kind of that was where I pulled back on the training. Man, that was for the prep of my first fight, where I was running anywhere from 6 to 10 miles a day, squatting 2 times a week, deadlifting 2 times a week, benching way too much, and adding 1,000 accessory exercises onto my workouts while doing 3 hours a day in the fighting gym too, mind to add. So I was 3 hours fighting to four, 2 hours working out, doing an extra run on top of that, and I actually felt strong and fit until I got sick. Um, my cardio, I was pushing cardio so hard that and it because I'm a decent athlete to begin with, I was still able to do it. But I remember one time I went out one night and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna run a half marathon. And then I just ran a half marathon. And then lifted, I think 10 hours later and pulled like a deadlift PR or something crazy like that. And I think the day that I ran like the half marathon, I had like literally no water and I had just a burger. I had like a burger for lunch and then just ran a half marathon. So it's kind of like I can see why I didn't treat recovery as important as it was back then because it was paying off in the short term. But then that eventually led to me getting sick for 2 weeks and feeling like I was literally on death's door. And who knows, it might have actually been COVID, a COVID and sinus infection. I mean, that could have been that. Certainly got
yeah.
that a few times too during the course of everything. But yeah, wild period.
Yeah, no, I
Arthur,
mean, I
sorry,
think
go ahead.
every young athlete who doesn't really know what he's doing, like, has some kind of crazy period. I just think you have the coolest crazy period I've ever heard, honestly.
It was
Um,
fun. Slinging weights is fun
yeah, 100%.
until it's not, and
Yeah,
everything
and it was
hurts.
this. What's really interesting too is like you're kind of like a poster boy reason of like why we do what we do. It's like why we program the way we program, like why we periodize the way we periodize, why we manage rates of perceived exertion the way we manage them. It's because you can redline until you can't. I shared a redline story in the first episode where it's like, I was doing the 375 10 by 10, so 200 reps at 375, in under, gosh, I don't know how long it took, like maybe 40 minutes. And then I was also sparring and I was also like doing a marathon runners program. Like I was doing the same kind of thing you were doing, right? And it's like you can do that until you can't. And I remember that was like November, and I wasn't really okay till like January. Like that whole winter, I was just shot. Um, so yeah, I mean that is why we do what we do. That's why we coach the way we coach. That's why AFF is the way that it is. Um, yeah, this one was a sprint, much like the story you told us. But yeah, that to the viewers, to the listeners, that is getting to know our co-founder, Colin Zastro. Um, you know that Muay Thai fight. I think if you're gonna, the guy who we fought is actually a good friend of ours now, and he's an AFF client. So shout out to Bennett. It's great. He's a great guy. Southpaw voodoo magic in his stance, but like great fighter, fellow Christian. But yeah, I feel like that fight would have been more competitive if you were more prepared, like in a Muay Thai context, opposed to MMA context. And I was
100%.
furious at the time. I was like, you should have prepared him better. I saw it. I was so mad. I was getting
Yeah,
all
yeah.
protective, you know. Um, and I was like, oh wait, that guy's from this gym. Oh, dude, that's like that might be like right now the best gym in the country. So yeah, you fought an absolute dog for your first Muay Thai fight too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And for me, it wasn't even the fact that I lost. That wasn't what I the takeaway from it. I was just happy that I pushed myself to a place that I did was unsure that I could go to and
yeah,
go that hard. And that kind of was like, you know what? People don't build up self-confidence by self-affirmations in the mirror. They build up the self-confidence by building up a stack of evidence that they are who they say they are. And for me, it wasn't about being the greatest of all time, but just about being the best that I could be. In terms of being able to suffer, being able to push myself and commit to something, um, damage, head kicks, punches to the head. Um, I was just happy that I achieved that level of intensity and grit.
it was a dogfight, just to
Mhm.
say the least. And that's all anyone can hope for, when you go fight by fight, right? It's just like when push comes to shove that like you stay in the pocket, you don't duck, like be evasive, but stay in the fight. Don't just try to survive, right?
Yeah.
And you most certainly did. You weren't surviving. Surviving looks different from what you were doing for sure. Um, and yeah, I mean, first time Colin and I ever trained Muay Thai, he drove down from Wisconsin at like 4 in the morning to Illinois at 6 a.m. And it took me like an hour to get him to relax. He was like so revved up. And the last AFF meetup, like we're close to a week, we're a week out from leaving for the AFF DC meetup. And we had the AFF Chicago meetup where we had the first late night kumite. And yeah, that was a Colin was smiling while teeing off on somebody, and I was just like, Colin, lower. But he's got one speed, and he's not malicious, and he's just like I said at your wedding, man, you're a force of nature. Like that is who you are as a person, and that's why everyone loves you. It's one of many reasons everyone loves you, man. And
Thank you.
so yeah, short one this week, guys. I kind of knew that Colin was just gonna blitz through it, and I learned some things that he didn't even told me about. So I'm glad we did this one. Um, Next week we'll feature another AFF athlete, and we'll also have some more nitty gritty sports science subject matter. But we wanted all of you new listeners and new viewers to get to know we the two co-founders a bit better before we get really moving along. So
Yes, sir.
awesome. As always, everyone, God bless. Happy training. You can follow us on Instagram, anti.fragile.fitness. Go to our website, antifragilefitness.com, and look out for, educational sports science content, video vlog content, training vlogs, general thematic sports science, entrepreneurial, and combat sports posting. But see you guys in the next one.